welcome all of you to the first presentation in the Spring 2022 Westchester University Sustainability Research and Practice Seminar. Thank you for making time to join us today. I'd like to pass on this gratitude from the Office of Sustainability. My name is Brad Flam. I'm the director of the office, as well as from our co-sponsors, the Office for Research and Sponsored Programs and the Sustainability Council's Scholarly and Creative Activities Committee. We co-sponsor this series, and we're delighted that you've joined us today. This is the inaugural presentation out of a program of 12 talks that will take place at this same time and day every week, except for during spring break week, of course. We are really excited by the lineup of presenters, scholars who are faculty members here and from Temple University, who are student scholars, and who are staff at the university who are practicing these ideas of environmental, social, and economic sustainability. You can see the full program of talks by going to the Office of Sustainability's homepage. Down at the bottom, you'll find a link to an image that you can download and keep. While you're at our homepage, if you don't already subscribe to our weekly email bulletin, please subscribe then. You'll see at the top right-hand corner a button where you can input your Westchester University email address, and you'll be kept up to date on the talks that will take place in this series, as well as other events, programs, volunteer opportunities that the Office of Sustainability supports. So thank you again for joining us. And without further ado, I'd like to pass the digital floor to Professor Jasmin Tahmaseb McConatha and her student co-presenters.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for having us. We're grateful to be here. The majority of the students in my research lab this semester are working on the various aspects of healing and nature, and we're working on increasing inclusivity to parks and green spaces, and we're excited about the project. Now, some of our projects are just getting off the ground. Some of them are building on work that we did before. So I have kind of a lot of information, and I'll skip through some of it. And if you have any questions, I'll be happy to address them, or you can reach out to me or any of the research student participants who are going to be introducing their particular area of interest as we get into it. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Okay. Okay, so the topic of our work and our research globally is coping with grief and loneliness and the healing power of green spaces. And we're looking at the term green spaces also kind of holistically, including gardens, including natural spaces, including any kind of public outdoor spaces that people have access to. So just a little bit of background. In the last couple of years, every person in the planet has experienced some loss, death, unemployment, increase in loneliness and isolation, a loss of connectivity and support, loss of freedom to move about the way we're accustomed to. I have been looking at the relationship between well-being and nature for a long time. It's been important to me personally, and it's been important to me in my work, which focuses primarily on well-being in later life. In the past couple of years, I lost my closest friend and research partner, Dr. Farkas Schnell, who was chair of the political science department. And part of the project that I'm going to talk about is the last project we did together with her. And subsequently, I've had other losses, as has everyone else. And so one of the areas that we're focusing on is how time in nature can help us cope with grief. Grief can help us cope with loss. And that's something that I've looked at for many years in looking at the well-being of older adults and later adulthood. One of the things that has emerged and is emerging is, while the grieving experience is very painful, it can also be used as a journey to connect us to something greater than ourselves, to nature, to help us introspect, and to help us increase our self-realization and build resilience. And those are some of the goals that we have for our work right now in this semester. And I've got an amazing group of students who is working in my lab on this topic. So a little bit of background, loneliness, social isolation, loss, grief have become a part of many of our lives. Public health measures have in some ways increased poor mental health outcomes. 6 to 10 adults report ongoing symptoms of anxiety and depression, and surveys that are coming out of the last 2 years indicate that an increasing number of Americans have difficulty sleeping, are engaging in unhealthy eating, substance abuse or alcohol abuse. And then I've looked at how we manage type 2 diabetes in the past and other chronic illnesses, and we noticed that there's been a worsening of chronic conditions as a result of the social circumstances that we've been dealing with. And so time outside, walking in nature, those are some of the safe anecdotes to some of these problems. And there's some interesting work coming out that is addressing how nature can combat some of these symptoms and promote healing. And I also just wanted to say that there are certain populations that are more vulnerable populations that have more challenges when it comes to taking advantage of time in nature. People who are living in poverty, people in poor urban environments. I'm an immigrant, and I've spent my whole life looking at the well-being of various at-risk immigrant populations, those struggling with chronic illness. And then, there are lots of people who just don't have access to green space, to gardens, to outdoor spaces. Essentially, what we're finding is that an alienation from nature is one factor that leads to an increase in stress-related illnesses and, as I mentioned, loneliness and isolation. And it's as really devastating to us as alienation from social relationships. The average American now spends 10 hours a day connected to some technological device. And some of the research that we've looked at that looks at connectivity to nature says just 30 minutes of being outside can help make such a difference to our well-being. So if we think about the fact that we're spending 10 hours connected to devices, yet many of us are not finding 30 minutes to be outside. It's kind of mind-boggling. And by all accounts, we are clearly wired to interact with air, water, plants, animals, but in many cases, we're not finding the opportunity to do that. So I'm very pleased to see that there are several different programs in psychology that are looking at the ways that nature can help us deal with the mental health crisis that we're facing right now. And I'll just go over some of those briefly, and then I'll go over a program that we've been involved with. There's a new form of therapy that's emerging called ecotherapy, and it's helping people deal with what is being referred to as nature deficit disorder. And it's been useful for promoting well-being for diverse populations, regardless of resources. So, some of the people that have done preliminary research from this perspective found that just 2 hours a week outside tends to be to have a direct relationship with an increased well-being. It can serve as an antidote for stress. It can lower blood pressure, stress hormone level, reduce nervous system arousal, enhance the immune system, and increase feelings of self-esteem and reduce anxiety and improve mood. So there's some new research coming out looking at this, and we've been reading it and discussing it, and it's some very interesting work. An older form of research that comes from Japan called forest bathing or forest therapy is similar to what we call mindfulness therapy in psychology, but taking place outside. And the focus is on going out into the forest and focusing on the sights, the sounds, the smells that you're experiencing to sort of to try to look at what is coming into your basically your sensory input. And they've found that people who are able to do that 3 to 5 times a week for 30 minutes have reported much less stress, less anxiety, and higher levels of well-being. So some of these, like these 2 forms of therapy, really are very they don't require a lot of commitment. They don't require a lot of funds. They don't require a lot of resources. And so it's something that we're excited about pursuing further. Are some results that I just analyzed over winter break. In the spring of 2020, when we moved to basically isolation measures were put into place. My colleague Frauke and I had a research group, and we had a grant that we were working on, and what we did was we went to either virtual or eventually outdoor interviews with people, and we asked them to we had an IRB that was that permitted us to do interviews and to ask them questions about their outdoor activities. And if you remember, during that time everybody was moving outside. And what we found, I just went in and analyzed this recently. I had to take a break from it because it was sad, because it was our last project. But basically, we found that people who had walked at least 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week for a 3-month period, reported much greater ability to cope with the changes, the isolation, than those people who weren't able to do that. And the findings were really very significant, and we're looking forward to writing that up and publishing that. So this was from the spring of 2020. Now, another project I just want to talk about briefly that deals with sort of global sustainable practices to promote the well-being of all adults with a focus on older adults. So just a little bit of background: the world is aging. There are more than 700 million people over the age of 65 in this year, 2022. And so the World Health Organization on a global level, AARP on a national level, have partnered to try to find ways to promote the well-being of all people and to focus on inclusivity in age and background, ethnicity, so this is a project that I have been a part of, that I've been helping coordinate for several years now, and several of my students have worked on this project. I'm going to talk about this 10-minute walk campaign, which is something that we're doing right now in a few minutes, but excuse me. But in 2010, the World Health Organization established a global network of age-friendly cities and communities. And it's a consortium of cities and communities worldwide that are designed to meet the needs of all of their residents. And the network provides an opportunity for us to exchange information, resources, and to support one another in sort of sharing experiences of what works, what doesn't work. So we start out with identifying some needs, and then we share successful programs that we've had. And in 2014, the borough of Westchester joined other cities in the United States. We were actually 80th as an age-friendly designated community. And I'll just go over through this a little bit quickly. And basically, in 2016, AARP also began looking at livable cities and communities in the United States. And so we were able to join that in the summer of 2016. So since that time, in partnership with the World Health Organization and AARP, I've coordinated a variety of programs, many of which are focused on sort of sustainable outdoor spaces, walking trails, sidewalks, benches, and so forth. And this is, we have a website at the Westchester University website, and then this is our link on the World Health Organization website. If anyone's interested, I'll be happy to share that. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some of the projects that we've done looking at inclusivity in the Westchester community. My own interest in loneliness and social isolation has been an ongoing research area. And so what we've looked at the ways in which creating access to walking spaces, park, green space, social connections, and civic and political engagement can help promote people's well-being. And I'll talk a little bit about how that relates to gardens and a Longwood Gardens project that we're working on right now. So when we started the project, we did ethnographies of communities, we did interviews, we did media analysis, and we did focus groups. And there are some pictures of some of the activities and some of the students that were involved. And I wanted to share this because it relates to our community. And as a result of interviews and focus group analyses, and the interviews were quite a few people, at least 68 people, and then we held a series of focus groups on campus and at various public places. And we found, and we weren't specifically looking for that, but we found very high levels of satisfactions with park and natural spaces, public spaces, community organizations, public events like the Turk's Head Festival, and the ability for social participation in Westchester. Some of the areas of concern were congestion, parking, cost of living, and challenges in access to public transportation. So that doesn't directly relate to what we're doing now. This was an assessment that we did 5 years ago. But I wanted to just share that. And these are some of the projects that we're doing right now. One of my students, who will talk in a little bit, is looking at mindfulness and walking in nature. We're looking at this 10-minute project, which is a national project that I'll explain, looking at creativity and coping with stress, grief, loss, and loneliness. We're doing some media analysis, and then basically, in addition to that, looking at how people can promote their health by getting outside. And these are some related projects that I've been working on over the years, on and off. So this 10-minute campaign, we're really kind of excited about it, and I think the students are excited about working on this. There's a nationwide movement to ensure that everyone has access to a quality park or a green space within a 10-minute walk. And so what we're doing is we're doing some analyses of various communities to look at whether that is the case and what challenges exist if that is not the case. So this, I think, is going to be a very fun project, and a lot of my students are working on that. By the way, if you have any questions, just let me know. I'm sort of plowing ahead here. So, and then another project that we're working on in partnership with Longwood Gardens. One project has to do with doing sort of assessments of the reasons that people go to the park and the benefits that they feel they're getting from visiting the park. Now, I originally come from Iran, and gardens are very much a part of my life growing up. And in fact, I don't know if people know this, but the Persian gardens are basically, Persian rugs are basically reproductions of Persian gardens in different parts of Iran. And the word paradise comes from the old Persian word heaven, or garden, I'm sorry. And so gardens have always been something that's been very important, in my life. And so I have a membership at Longwood and have been going there for a long time. But one of the issues also is that it is not accessible to everyone. And we have done an analysis of other public gardens, and we found similar kinds of things, is that they tend to be expensive, and at times there are places that you certainly can't walk to them. And so we're also partnering with Lincoln University and the EPA to explore how we can improve the inclusiveness and make Longwood Garden more welcoming to diverse populations, people of all ages and backgrounds. So we're going to be holding a meeting, a consortium in the fall of this year to come up with an assessment tool and to come up with some ideas for how that can be done. So we're kind of excited about doing that as well. And so kind of a little bit about a couple of other projects before I have some of the students share their experiences, which for some of the students are just beginning and some of them are continuing from last semester. So as I said before, COVID-19 has reshifted the focus on the importance of outdoor spaces. And we've also have an intergenerational mentoring program that's been going on for a while. And this past couple of years, one of the focus areas has been looking at it as lessons from my grandmother's garden. Now, the grandmother doesn't have to be a related grandmother, and we've actually just published that. And basically what we did was we looked at how people were growing foods, growing vegetables, growing herbs, and we had students connect with their own or grandmothers or neighbors and interview them and learn from them about kind of what they learned growing up. And one of the things that emerged from that, there were some food preparations and food growing ideas, but also a lot of the ways that herbs can be used as a healing, relaxing kind of tool. So that was very interesting, and that's been a fun project. And then I got that idea from in Germany. There's a program called Schrebergarten, which is all over the country, and urban families. It's like community gardens, but it's a more expanded program of community gardens where people go and they spend the weekend and they picnic, and it's an opportunity for everyone to kind of have a garden, get their hands in the dirt. It was started by a Dr. Schreber about 100 years ago, and it's been a very successful program. And you lease a piece of land in a garden from the city or the state, and it's very inexpensive, and it's a way for everyone to get outside and benefit from the outdoors. And so that was sort of the catalyst for us exploring people's access to green spaces and gardens. And then last semester we were looking at creativity and coping, at art, at music, at gardening, at cooking, and how those things helped people manage their anxiety, their negative emotions. This was a painting that someone did, we're continuing that this semester, looking at green space. Someone had asked me in the chat how students can participate in the spring. They can reach out to me, and I'll be happy to talk to them. And then I wanted to mention that in my own dedication and work with immigrant populations, we are still, and we're hoping to address some of this with the Inclusivity Project with Lincoln and the EPA, but there are immigrant populations that are really at risk for not having access to green spaces, to walking trails, to healthy food, which has led to a lot of increased stress, health concerns, even premature aging. And some of the challenges, obviously language, cultural competence, healthcare, and economic factors, as well as work-life balance. I'm going to pause there and let my students talk a little bit, but can I answer any questions before Carrie gets started? Okay, whenever you're ready, Carrie.
Hi guys, I'm Carolyn, or Carrie Cusmano. I'm a junior psychology major, and I just joined Dr. McConatha's research lab this semester based off of my research on nature and exercising outside and its overall benefits to well-being. So I'm going to briefly talk about exercising outside and its benefits. So with all the lack of energy one might be feeling from being on a screen all day or being home all the time due to COVID, it's very important to get outside and exercise. Lockdown fatigue is something we have probably all dealt with and might still be affecting us to this day. So use this as further motivation to get outside. A study from the Journal of Environmental Science and Technology did a study on benefits to exercising outside and found that compared with exercising indoors, exercising in natural environments was associated with greater feelings of positive engagement, decreases in tension, confusion, anger, and depression, and increased energy. However, the results suggested that feelings of calmness may be decreased following outdoor exercise. Also, participants in the study reported greater enjoyment and satisfaction with outdoor activity and declared a greater intent to repeat the activity at a later date. Next slide, please. Thank you. Although less accessible, technology has given people the chance to experience nature inside too. A study from the International Journey of Stress Management conducted a study where 112 introductory psychology students were randomly assigned to either exercising outside, walking inside with the same green space displayed through virtual reality, or just viewing the virtual reality but not walking or doing any form of exercise. Results suggested that the greatest energy that was experienced was from walking outside, where the least amount of energy was reported when viewing the virtual reality walk with no actual exercise involved. Both female and male participants walking in the laboratory with the virtual reality were more relaxed and experienced the least tension of the three conditions. So calmness can come from virtual reality experience that is nature themed, but nature itself gives humans the most amount of energy. I hope both of these are motivations to get outside and exercise, do both, or just be around nature in whatever format that might be for you. Thank you.
Thanks, Carolyn. That's great. And Carolyn's interested in looking at how we can motivate more people to get outside, even that 30 minutes 3 to 5 times a week, which is the minimum recommended. So we'll see where that takes us. And Katie Ford is going to talk about. Katie was working with us last semester on focusing on social isolation and loneliness and some of the negative consequences associated with that. And she's going to talk a little bit about what we're going to do this semester.
Yes, hi everyone. Thank you all for joining us. So my name's Katie Ford. I am a senior psychology major, and this is my second semester working on the loneliness and isolation project. So I find this to be a very important topic because isolation and the feelings of loneliness has increased dramatically over the past many years. Particularly with the COVID-19 pandemic, it has skyrocketed because we're being forced and encouraged to isolate. Some researchers are even calling this a double pandemic because of the mental health concerns that come along with this. So the majority of the American population currently report feeling lonely. And that's disproportionately higher in older adults, minorities, and those living in poverty or in lower income areas. Could go to the next slide, please. Thank you. So feelings of loneliness and isolation can have dramatic health consequences, both mental and physical. It can increase stress, anxiety, and depression. It impacts your immune system, makes it more difficult to fight off diseases, and just overall can really make it more difficult for a quality health. So I find it to be very important to stop this rise by offering access to green spaces and healthy coping mechanisms in general, and increasing the access to that and spreading education about the concerns and the potential consequences that could come along with this, as well as ways to healthfully move along and combat the negative consequences that come along with it.
Okay, thanks so much, Katie. And one of the things that Katie's real interested in also is this notion of small steps and what a big difference small steps can make in terms of helping us cope with our anxiety and related problems. And Nicole is going to talk about spirituality and the healing power of nature.
Hi, I'm Nicole Lyman. I am also a senior in psychology. My interests are in the spiritual connection that humans have with nature. And you can see the connection of nature and well-being throughout time in art, science, literature, religion, and philosophy. And you also see the link of spirituality to both nature and well-being. From ancient times when there were healing gardens meant for spiritual reflection, or we can see Humboldt, who was a natural scientist, speaking on how nature speaks the language of our soul, and Carl Jung, who extensively wrote on the connection between spirituality and psychology. There is evidence that the emotional connection in which that we have with nature, as well as the sustainable behavior that comes along with that connection, could be the linking factor between nature and well-being. And you can go on to the next slide. This feeling of connection to something greater than ourselves allows us to have a unique and personal spiritual experience. So this not only benefits our well-being, giving us purpose and meaning in our lives, but it also gives us a chance to be generous to others and to the planet. So again, spirituality in nature gives us a link to sustainable behavior that again might be the moderating factor between well-being and meaning and nature. And then the final slide. Just reiterating that nature and the connection and emotional and spiritual connection that it gives to us facilitates both social and emotional well-being through finding meaning and purpose in our lives.
Thanks so much, Nicole. And we also have noted that connecting with nature and feeling that spiritual connection also makes people engage in more sustainable practices that help combat climate change. So we're looking at how that concerns and anxiety and stress about climate change fits into that piece, but some of the preliminary research seems to indicate that that's another way of bringing in sort of concern for the climate and concern for something greater than ourselves, and also connecting to people who we've lost in the pandemic and helping us cope with the grief of that loss. The last student that's going to share her work right now is Georgina Heyer, and Georgina is very interested in mindfulness and time in nature.
Hi, my name is Georgina. I'm a first year PsyD student. Dr. McConatha is my research mentor. I have an interest in nature, and I'm really considering it as my dissertation topic. So to begin, again, my slides are going to be talking about the relationship between nature and the connectedness that we can develop when practicing mindfulness meditation in a natural environment. According to a study that was conducted in 2020 by Ray and his colleagues, when a person practices mindfulness in a natural environment like a garden or a forest or near a river, over time they tend to develop this like connection with nature. This connectedness is understood as the extent to which an individual feels a sense of oneness with the natural environment. Being in a mindful state can really enhance an individual's non-judgmental awareness of his or her senses. So for example, sights, sounds, smells of the surrounding environment that are really stimulating those senses. In the end, establishing a heightened sense of awareness of our environment and the scenery that's around us. And relating back to context, this connection to nature becomes stronger when a person is meditating in nature as opposed to just exposure to nature through pictures or sounds. Nature has been found to have restorative effects on cognitive functions, which combats mindless thinking by refocusing one's attention on the here and now. This tends to relate to the attention restoration theory, which will be discussed in the next slide. Thank you, Dr. McConatha. So this slide focuses on a study that was conducted in 2019, which shows that nature has a restorative effect on cognitive abilities. And this perceived restorativeness found in the settings is really supportive for beginner meditators and when they're doing their meditation practice. The practice of mindfulness can be enhanced through restoration skills training, which is basically just being out in the natural environment and practicing mindfulness. And this helps restore any depleted attentional capabilities. This training was specifically based on the attention restoration theory by Kaplan and Kaplan. Their theory really argues that cognitive abilities and psychological well-being are restored when someone is in a natural environment. This is said to be because natural settings really support this effortless, like bottom-up driven attentiveness, which is basically taking information in from our external environment, but in reference to our senses. This is said to be pleasant, like interesting stimuli from the environment. So for example, the flowers, any streams, the sounds of like trees swishing when we're in the environment. So by being exposed to natural surroundings, our attention is attracted to the pleasant stimuli around us. This then restores attention capabilities, psychological well-being, and replenishes the body from any effects of stress, and ultimately produces positive affect, all the while improving one's ability to be in the present moment. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Georgina, and we'll look forward to your project as it takes shape. So we're kind of excited about the fact that psychological research is looking at our interconnection between our well-being and nature and the benefits that we can have as a result of spending time in nature. And as I said, some of my work has looked at later life well-being, and walking in nature, time in nature helps with, people also cope with the sort of the existential crises that sometimes arise in later life, and as well as helping us cope with the day-to-day anxiety, stress, loneliness, isolation, and of course some of the grief and loss that we're all experiencing. So thank you so much for letting us talk about our sort of varied work in this area. There's clearly lots of opportunities to explore nature from a variety of ways. One of the students, Janelle, who's here but not presenting today, is looking at how physical challenges, illnesses, how nature can relate with that. So we're looking forward to having her results as well. So thanks so much. We'll be happy to have some discussion, answer any questions, or address any points that anyone would like to make. I see. Someone is saying that, do people feel that there's enough green space on Westchester's campus, which is an interesting question. We haven't directly looked at that, but there were people from the campus community who were part of our initial assessment, and they tended to report being very satisfied with the green space available. I have had people say that they have to walk from the borough all the way to South Campus, which tends to be a bit of a walk to go into those woods behind the tennis courts there, but they're grateful that they're there. I think Tristan has a question.
Yes, I was wondering if there is a plan to make greens more accessible in Westchester, not as a campus, but also possibly as a city, like implementing more trees and greens and gardens, or making the walking trail that you were just talking about in South Campus more accessible to everyone on campus, because not many people would want to take that hike down there just to continue walking, especially because of like the dangers of the road and cars and all of that.
It's a really good point. I was working with Carolyn Comida, who is the former mayor, who's now in the State House representative, and she was very committed to that. And under her, they started the new redoing the sidewalks and adding benches and so forth in the borough. I don't know exactly what the plans are right now, so I can't answer that. But actually that is something that I'm interested in finding out. Maybe someone else has a response to that. I don't know. There's the shuttle that you can take. So someone's saying that, you know, there's a shuttle you can take to the garden. So for right now, that's an option. And I think that this 10-minute walking to green space will help us do an updated ethnography of the community, which will be interesting to see just how long does it take and so forth.
There is also an organization active in the borough. It's a consortium of civic and environmental nonprofit groups called the Westchester Green Team. And I put the link to their website in the chat. They have a number of committees working on different issues, including gardens, tree canopy coverage, access to green space. And just last night, they kicked off a new committee looking at what's called the Dark Skies initiatives, trying to sort of reclaim our ability to see the nighttime sky by addressing light pollution. So
that sounds great.
If you're not familiar with that group, go to their website, download their latest newsletter that they just released today. Some really fascinating stuff going on.
That sounds really great. Yeah. Other questions or comments? That was really informative. We'll have to definitely explore that. I like that night sky.
I had a question about the just getting back to the age-friendly cities at Westchester, and I'm pretty surprised, truthfully, in regards to like the sidewalks in particular. As someone who's fully ambulatory, I find the sidewalks hard to walk on in Westchester. And so I guess I'm just curious as to like what metrics did they use to gauge that? But also, where did we rank in terms of, you know, what's the number out of
Oh, okay. So that's so it wasn't like we weren't like ranked higher or lower than a different community. We joined the consortium based on the fact, what happened was I talked at the time, Carolyn Committa was mayor, and I talked to her and she said, well, you have to talk to the borough council and to some of the business leaders. So I did presentations to them and talked to them about what was involved and and they all were enthusiastic and committed to working on the project. And so then we applied jointly to be a part of the consortium. So it wasn't a ranking, it was basically saying we're dedicated to this cause and we will do what we can. And in terms of the sidewalks, it's a little bit of an issue because it's such a historic town, and the replacements, that were bricks, which are nice, and you don't want to not have bricks, but then bricks are a little bit more difficult to negotiate. But about 5-6 years ago, I don't know if you remember, but the bricks they have gone in and redone them so that they're much more walkable, and there have been lots of benches added so that when people are walking, they can take a break. And so it's an improvement on what we had. What we had was great, but it was uneven bricks and fewer benches.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other comments?
I had a
I have a
question.
question. Oh, sorry, Brett.
No, wait, Sam, go ahead.
Okay. This was kind of towards what Katie was talking about. So she can answer this, anyone can answer it, but what kind of like pedagogical means are you looking at in terms of teaching students or professors or whatever on this idea of mental health and the connection to nature? Like, what are you, when you speak about education, like what exactly are you looking to, I guess, I'm at a loss for the words, like not get at, but teach people, or what ways are you looking at doing that, or kind of trying to, I lost my train of thought, but you kind of know what I'm talking about.
It's a good question, but it's a tough question. Katie, do you want me to talk a little bit and then you can add something?
Yeah, that works.
Yes, so while you're reflecting on that, I mean, one of our first steps has always just been to create awareness, and the thing that this that we have focused on is increasing awareness about the fact that small steps matter, and that there are things that are available to all of us. While it's ideal to be out in nature, creating awareness that just getting outside and walking around the block is a great small step. And then also reaching out to people while you're out to connect in terms of if they need help or if you need help, and that's okay. So we've kind of focused on that. Katie, do you want to add anything to that?
So the way that I personally have been trying to, since I just started this research last semester, I've mostly just been having conversations with people. I'll talk to my friends about it. I'll try to ask my friends if they want to go on walks, or even my family, my grandparents, encouraging them to get outside, and my neighbors and everything like that. So that's kind of the steps that I've been taking so far. But I would like to find a way to kind of make that information more widespread as well.
We are developing an IRB with the new research group this semester. They've completed their training, and we're going to be submitting to get permission to do some interviewing of people to see, explore motivational factors, explore, the responses, the feelings that they have after walking, and so forth. So we're putting together an interview protocol to do that within the framework of that sort of 10-minute project that is going on nationwide. So
Okay, thank you so much. That's great.
I have a question, but I wanted to note that it is 12:50, and sometimes people have to log off at this point to get to other classes. If the presenters are willing to stay on for a couple more questions, that would be great. But for all of you in the audience, thank you for attending today. If you need to log off now, please don't hesitate. And Professor McConatha, if you're comfortable staying on for a few more minutes, I know I have a question and I suspect there may be more.
Yes, absolutely. I have a class at 1, but I have 10 minutes, so I'm good.
Okay, I'll try to be quick. Your presentation reminds me that a year ago at this time, our first speaker in the research and practice seminar was Liz Carper, who is an instructor and counselor in the university's Counseling and Psychological Services office. And at that time, she mentioned that one of the impacts they expected of a return to campus by the entire campus community is that there would be a greater need for counseling services. And I'm just wondering if the research you're doing connects in any direct way to the services that Westchester University's counseling services are providing to students and employees.
That's a really interesting question. I guess the way, I'm not a clinician, and my work focuses more on sort of human development and the promotion of well-being, and looking at ways that well-being can be prolonged in later life. And so I envision the work that we're doing to fall into more the health promotion aspect of any kind of programming, and I think we'd be happy to talk to people and work with them. It's an interesting point that you raised. I mean, I think that given that there is such a need for mental health services right now, and I know everyone has waiting lists, it might be interesting to have some discussion groups focusing on, you know, these sort of small steps that can be taken as a health promotion. So, I mean, I think you're giving us certainly something that we can think about. We have not directly connected with anyone in either our mental health clinic or the university clinic. In the past, I've worked with the wellness promotion groups, but that's an interesting point. Thank you. Especially like some of the work that Georgina is interested in doing in mindfulness might fit well into that.
Yes, I was just thinking, as far as your question was, how can our counseling programs, the clinic, like implement these like nature-based, that was your question, correct?
Know about the work you're doing and to see opportunities for helping our student body and employees.
So, I mean, I personally was just thinking about, like, as far as like the clinic, when because the clinic also sees Westchester students as well. And so possibly like when they're in the waiting room, the clinic can offer like good like nature sounds, or like a TV with like I don't know, pictures of nature, something that can kind of like mentally relax them before going into a session. Or and back to what Dr. McConatha said about just raising awareness. So maybe, yeah, I'm not totally sure, but that was the first thing that came to my mind. Maybe also like putting flyers around the university and just like you know, doing like little reminders of like take your 10-minute walk, or play that relaxing sound, something just to remind people, make them aware.
It's an important point. Thank you for raising it. Actually, we'll have a discussion about that this semester.
I just wanted to throw this out there. I'm working on a project with the director of the counseling center to hopefully incorporate a mural outside the
Oh,
office. And so I'm gonna suggest after this presentation that, nature be certainly woven into the design. There's a lot of steps to take, and they're going to get feedback from the staff and, people that utilize it. I can fully admit that I've utilized the counseling center services and find them very helpful. So yeah, I'm going to suggest that we try to incorporate that in some way as this mural thing slowly starts to get going. So thank you.
that
Yeah,
sounds
may I,
great.
oh, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
May I ask, are you in the program? Like in the PsyD program?
No, I'm not.
I thought maybe you were like an older student, like 4th year.
Well, I am.
I meant like a 4th year student or a 5th year.
I get that all the time.
That's entirely not what I meant, but yeah.
It's okay. It's okay.
Well, we,
Go ahead, Jasmin.
no, I was just gonna say thank you so much. We so enjoyed doing this, and it was great. It was a little stressful doing it the second week of the semester, but we're so glad because we were able to pull some things together that might have taken us another week or two. So thank you.
And we're grateful to all of you. Thank you to all of the presenters, and thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Please join us next week. Professor Megan Fork from biology will be talking about her research looking at water quality and stream health. So thank you again. We look forward to seeing you at future sessions.
Thanks so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all.